Welcome to the deep dive on alerts and case management. I am Shraddha Kothari. I'm Customer Success Manager at Linkurious. My role is to help my customers achieve their project goals with Linkurious Enterprise throughout their life cycle. And today, along with me, I have Bernard Saman, who's a solution engineer.
Thank you, Shraddha. My name is Bernard, and I'm Solutions Engineer at Linkurious. I've been following the development of the new version of Linkurious Enterprise Alerts, and today I'm going to tell you about its best practices.
Okay. The agenda of today's webinar will be to explain how alerts can be a powerful tool to help you do analysis and investigation. To start with, we'll explain few use cases in which alerts can be helpful. Then we will move on to explain what is an alert and further deep dive into the requirements of setting up an efficient alert system. We will also demonstrate the creation process of alerts. Towards the end, we will discuss about some key recommendations while you set up an alert and also give you some tips and tricks to start using alerts and case management in a fast manner. A bit of housekeeping before we begin. You can type in your questions in the Q&A section on the right anytime during the presentation today, and we'll happily address them during the Q&A session in the end of the presentation. So let's begin with the use cases. To give you context before I start, in today's world with huge amount of data, it's tedious to look for patterns that are pertinent to your business. For example, it could be fraud patterns in financial domain, risky suppliers in case of supply chain, and there can be many others. Linkurious Enterprise offers you alerts and case management, which helps you to automate and configure detection rules tailored to your needs, leveraging graph analytics. Let's move on to the first use case. Let's assume I have a specific pattern in my data where I see people sharing their phone numbers or identity cards, which is unusual or suspicious for my business. I would like to detect their occurrence automatically whenever they appear in my data. How can Linkurious Enterprise help? Linkurious Enterprise gives you the ability to write an alert with your business needs and set it to run at a specific frequency to help you pinpoint business specific patterns and promptly alert you in case of critical events. Let's move to the second one. When your alert is configured and you have list of results, you want to analyze the results to look for false positives or negatives. Also, you want to collaborate with your colleagues to manage the workload. How can Linkurious Enterprise help you in this case? Or how can you perform these activities with Linkurious Enterprise? With Linkurious Enterprise, you get exciting features like you can have comments into the case view where you can put a note using analysis features like filters, queries, etc. to help you ease the process and make informed decision faster. After that, when you have a list of cases which you get as a result of graph-powered detection rules, you might want to optimize and prioritize the cases you want to work on. To perform that, you need additional context for those cases. How can you get that with Linkurious Enterprise? Linkurious Enterprise added new capability to add up to 40 case attributes, which gives context to your cases, and also the possibility to filter cases based on those case attributes, which helps you perform triaging to work efficiently and to enhance your detection process. In the end, you will need to create an analysis on how alerts are being decisioned by your analysts and other statistics like number of false positives, SLAs, etc. Does Linkurious Enterprise provide these details? The answer is yes. You have the option to download the full case list with these details and create a dashboard based on your needs to run these statistical analysis. Now let's move on and see what is an alert and case management. As you can see in the picture here, Alerts in Linkurious Enterprise are automated detection rules that can be configured to run automatically, leveraging graph analytics to search for patterns of interest in a graph database and create comprehensive cases. For each occurrence it detects, a case is generated to help you gain valuable insights and facilitate in-depth analysis. Without further ado, I give it to Bernard to take you through the requirements to create efficient alerts and case management system. Bernard, over to you.
Thank you, Shraddha. Before starting creating or editing alerts, please double check with your project manager or administrator that your license includes the alerts feature and if your organization didn't consume the allowed number of models of your license. We'll be explaining what a model is later on. In order to configure a useful alert in Linkurious Enterprise, you need to understand some concepts to better take advantage of this feature. Linkurious Enterprise v4 introduced what is called multi-model alerts. But first, what is a model anyway? A model is a subset of criteria representing one pattern used for occurrence detection. And a multi-model configuration will be using multiple models in a single alert to ensure the deduplication and simple maintainable models. So the patterns will be simple, and then we'll be grouping all of them in a single alert. Without multimodal, you have two choices. Either create one big and complex query that is hard to maintain, or investigate multiple cases in separate alerts, but those cases may be redundant between different alerts. We will try to find in this database of 16 photos the pictures showing cats. Using other databases, we could have brought to light fraud and money laundering, problems in supply chain, or cybersecurity threats. To allow investigators to have as much context as possible, so they can manually take a decision if a picture is a cat or not, we will need patterns or criteria that represent a cat. For instance, a cat has a cat ear, a cat has a cat leg, a cat has a cat tail, a cat has a cat nose. So all those are patterns that will be detectable in your graph database, and having all of them in a single alert will bring you more context. But to group all those targets together, we will need what is called a target. A target is the main subject we are trying to investigate. Instead of having three separate cases we can see to the left, we will have one single consolidated case that includes more context. So if we had those three cases to the left, every case will be only showing what is in the blue circle. Instead, with the target, we will get the whole picture in one consolidated case that will make much more sense that this is a cat picture. Finally, in order to choose the cases you want to investigate at a glance, you may configure the attributes query and the corresponding columns that will describe the returned graph and the target it describes. The query will run on the subgraph generated in the case. You will have a global view of the case and all the matching models, and you will be able to add up to 40 columns to give more context about every case. So in this case, for instance, we can see that we could detect that there is one leg in the picture, one ear, we didn't detect the other one, and we also detected that there is one nose. Now, let's apply what we explained on a money laundering use case. We have here a database that includes 3 loans that are all related to the same broker and realtor. Choosing the loan itself as a target will create 3 separate cases with the loan, the realtor, and the broker. We can see that to the left. If we choose the realtor and the broker companies as target, both of them, we can see that instead of investigating three separate cases, we'll have to investigate only one. We can see it to the right. On the other hand, the case attributes query will return relevant comments that will help us choose which case to investigate. So here we can see multiple comments related to the number of loans a user had, the nationality of the user, the properties value he is asking for, the average distance between where he is living and where is the property he is trying to buy. Finally, you'll need to decide how often your alert should run. Depending on your use case, you may configure the alert to run more or less frequently. If the users write to the database parameters that can affect alerts, you need to run the alert more frequently. If your data is only updated by an automated process every week, no need to run the alert more than once after the database updates. Now I'll show you a demo. For that, I will be using our documentation example. So it's in the user manual. You can go to alerts and alerts creation example to get all the Cypher queries that will be used for the models. So here we have uh, 5 models. So we have a first query, second one, the third, and here we have 2 talking about a company that is working in a sensitive field. So here we are considering military, government, technical, and oil gas transmission. In this case, we have 2 patterns because it's either the person who is taking the loan or the company that a person controls is taking the loan. That's why we have 2 cases. So I'm taking this page to another screen so I can easily copy paste the configuration, but you can do it yourself later on. So I'll start by creating a new alert. I will name it AMR Real Estate Deep Dive. And for the description, I'm just adding that it's the documentation example. Now, as I said, I will have to choose a target. The target will be the person in this case. So all the loans that are related to the same person will be returned in one consolidated case. And then I will start adding the models that I have in my documentation. So the first model talks about the disparity of the income and the loan. And I'm adding all the description and the model query. And now I can add another model. And here comes the multi-model functionality. So again, I'm just copy pasting it from documentation. And I'll add the 3 other models. Last one. So this is about a risky person depending on nationality. Or this is an example. Okay, so now I have my 5 models and I want to get some interesting data from all of these models to show to the investigator before going into the case to have some information about what type of fraud could have happened in this alert. So again, I'm pasting the the query that we have in our documentation, just here, setting up the case attributes. Okay, now I can add some columns that will be visible in my alert. So just make sure that first, when you want to add a column, it should be part of the return values. This is one thing. And another is, you probably saw that this looks a lot like a Cypher query, and it is a Cypher query, but using additional templates that we have created in Linkurious Enterprise to return only the nodes and relations that are related to a specific case. That's why if I want to return the target of a specific case, I will use this template here that returns all the nodes that are part of the target. In our case here, we only used P as a target, which is one node, but we could have returned more nodes, 3 or 4 nodes as a target, like the example I showed during the presentation just before. We returned 2 nodes, the realtor and the broker. So here I'm just finding the person that is in the target node set. And then I'm finding all the mortgage loans that are part of the context node set. And the context here is all the subgraph that is related to a specific target. So here I can return only the mortgage loans that are related to this specific case with this specific person I want to investigate. Now, of course, I can add some interesting columns that the investigator will be using to decide which cases to start investigating. So I'm adding the full name. You can see that I'm returning P, but I can use any property of P. I'm also returning the client ID from P as well. I'm returning the nationality of P. And you can see I'm using the type string for now. And now I return the total properties value that I have calculated, of course, in my query. And I will use number in this case. And this will help me use better filters when going through the alerts. Total number of loans. And I'll add one final one. Let's say the average distance that comes from a specific model. Okay, I could have added more columns because I returned also the available debt ratio and loan duration, but I'll stop here. Finally, you'll have to define a frequency. So you can choose between every 5 minutes, every hour, every day, and here you can choose at what time it will run, or every week. For now, I'm choosing every hour, enabling the alert, and I'll be sharing this alert with all the users of my instance. I could have shared with specific groups as well. Then I can save or save and run. If I only save, it will run at the chosen frequency. If I save and run, it will run directly right now. Okay, so if I come to my alert here, I can see that I have generated some cases. I have the columns I have configured. And of course, if I go to the unified case list by clicking on alerts, if I choose the alert I just configured, which is AMA Real Estate Deep Dive, and apply, I can see all the filters. For instance, if I put friends here, only the cases related to the nationality France will be returned. Okay, so in this example, we showed the alert creation that looked accessible for people with some Cypher knowledge. Yet, you need to take into consideration some points that may overtake you. Let's consider the following graph. You have the model target plus A and the model target plus B. So we have two models here. You should not always expect that every case will match both of those patterns. This means you'll need in your case attributes query to use the with clause to pass the detected values from a match to another, and optional match to avoid ending with a query that returns zero results. Because if I keep, so if I keep this query here, you can see that I'm trying to match the model B and the model A, everyone with a different type of relation. And this means that this case attributes query will only return results if both models matched. But if I do it like this, using the optional match and adding a with clause between every other match, I will be matching either relation A or relation B, or both, of course. And here I'm just using a classical match to use that for the target. And this way, I will be having columns that are relevant either when I'm only matching the case A, all the columns related to the model A will be returned. If I'm only matching the model B, only the columns related to the model B will be returned. And if I'm matching both, the columns will be filled out with both information. And of course, don't forget to use the context node set, target node set, to return all the nodes that are part of either the context or the target. And again, the same for the edges. So if you want the edges that are part of the subgraph of this case, you return the context edge set. It will be the list of IDs to compare the ID of your nodes with. And the target edge set, it will be all the edges that are set as a target. So you can see here that every time you want a node that is part of the target node set, you will compare its ID with this template. Okay, moreover, a Linkurious Enterprise Alert uses graph queries to detect a pattern which concerns a node, an edge, or a mix of both. Linkurious Enterprise will be saving the IDs of those nodes and edges. We never save business data in our database. We'll be always reading the business data from the graph database. This means that you'll need to be sure that the IDs are stable. For instance, when using a Neo4j database, you will need to configure our functionality called alternative IDs, because the nodes and relations IDs will be recycled in Neo4j database. So you can't ensure that if the database was modified, you will have the stable IDs. So please make sure you configure the alternative IDs feature. Now let's talk about closing a case and what happens if new patterns match again. After closing a case, if a new case concerning the same target, so let's say you have a target, we have two nodes related to that target. That created a case, and an investigator investigated that case and dismissed a fraud a fraud here. Okay, let's say a new node C matched again one of the models that were already used because the database was updated and new information was added. So the match will return a new case with only the new node that was added, as you can see here in the green square. And with that, you will see the badge number 2 in the green square that shows that two other nodes are related. But to make the investigator only see the new nodes that arrive to the database, only the new data, so node C, will be returned. Uh, you probably saw the alerts and that you can add comments to cases when a case is opened again because of new data. The history of the comments will not be available in the case. So it's a new case to investigate. We already explained that the target can either be a node, an edge, or a mix of both. Thus, a target can't be a node or an edge property. Some data scientists may render a community detected with AR or graph data science as a property of a node. In this case, if you're planning to generate a case per community, you'll need to set the collection of all the nodes belonging to the community as a target. This means that whenever a new node enters the community, the target will change, and thus a new case will be created. And it's the same case if a node exits the community. So the community is missing one node, all the target will change. This generates a redundant work overload and might push back investigators from using your alert. So it's your responsibility to avoid this configuration or similar one in other use cases. For instance, by creating a community node and linking all the community members to it and setting this node as a target. After catching your attention on things to avoid, let me tell you how to make from Linkurious Enterprise alerts the feature that will supercharge your company's workflow. First of all, let's talk about email notifications. With Linkurious Enterprise alerts, we have two types of email notifications that are configurable. You can integrate them in your company's workflow. First notification is the digest of new cases. This notification will send to all the people having access to an alert all the new cases since the last digest was sent. This can help team managers dispatch the newly detected cases to their colleagues and to get an idea about an alert efficiency and if it's still appearing in the digests. The second type of notifications is even more exciting because it can be used to notify someone that he needs to work on a specific case by assigning him the case. This can be used on the first assignment of the case, but can also be a way to escalate a case to another person when needed. It means that you already started investigating a case and you want to escalate it for another department. You can just assign it to a member of that department. He will get an email notification and continue working on the same case, see all the comments you added and all the graph that you developed. Now it's up to you to build the internal process that describes how will the case progress during its lifetime. Since you get an email for every case that have been assigned to you, we want to keep the case available for you if you ever want to get back to it and check the comments history. A case will never be deleted, even if the data changes or disappears and that the case is not matching any model of your alert anymore. To be sure a case is not deprecated, we added in the unified case list the last updated column that will tell you when did the case last matched. If some data was deleted since then, you will still be able to access the remaining data and the comments that were added. I will quickly show you on my screen. So you can see that this is the creation date of the case. This is when it was last updated. And of course, when going to the dashboard, to the alert, you can see when the alert did last run. Some investigators may want to choose specific cases based on the columns you generated for them. For that, we added two types of filters on an alert column. Text filters will keep all the cases having what you type in the filter in the right column, and numerical filters that will allow you to choose a range of values to keep in your case view. I'll show you again my screen. So if I go back to alerts, and you probably saw that my filters were persisted. So here I typed France because the nationality I chose is France, but I could have typed only FRAN and applied, and they will also show. So no need to type the total uh, keyword. And then you see here for the property values, for instance, I can choose a range. I will choose, for instance, 800,000, between 800,000 and 1,200,000, and apply. And you can see that I only got 3 cases. So of course you can use multiple filters in the same time in order to prioritize your investigation. As I already said, the filters are persisted. If you log out, log in again, you go to another page and come back, the same filters will be applied. In order to understand more efficiently how performant are your alerts, we have built an Excel template that is available on request. All you need to do is choosing the filters you want, download the Excel file from the Unified Case List page, and paste its content in the template Excel file. Now you can explore the resulting charts to better understand which alerts are more efficient, the average time for a case closure, the number of cases generated by months, and so on. I'll show you that on my screen. So here I already chose some filters. I can click here on the download button. I'm not copy pasting right now the data, but I will go to the template we will be providing. So here you can see the SLAs. You can see the number of new cases and number of closed cases. You can see the number of cases by status, by export date. You can see the users, how many confirmed or dismissed cases they closed, etc. Some of you may not have a very complex pattern to detect in their data. You may want to put in place some watch lists of fraudsters' phone numbers or IBANs to detect their existence in your data whenever they arrive. Instead of creating a cipher query where you hard code those values, you can simply create a CSV file where you can list them and process this file in your alert. You can also do the same by using a node where you store all the values in a list property. Let me show you how I used a Google form where I can input some suspect phone numbers and how I configured the alert to read from the resulting CSV file and create cases whenever a match is found. So this is a Google form I created. Here's where the the person that detected a phone number will submit this phone number. And this is the alert I configured. So you can see here in my alert that I'm reading from a CSV file, and then I'm returning some nodes related to the phone number that matched. Okay. So right now I have 2 cases with those phone numbers. But for instance, I will go and find a new phone number. Let's take this one. I will go and add it here in my form. Okay. Then I come back to my alerts dashboard. I will force run this alert again. So you saw that I have an additional case with that was generated recently, and the phone number is the one I already chose. In the case view, I can see the phone number that I put in my Google form, as well as the person that has this phone number. Some other investigators can start their job by using the search bar in order to explore the graph and find suspicious entities. Once found, they may be interested to properly follow those investigations in the Linkurious Enterprise Case Management tool, where they can take advantage of the assignment feature and notifications and adding comments. In this case, it's possible to create an alert that is based on a piece of data added by the investigator in the graph himself. So the investigator, in this case, will detect a fraud case. He will launch a query template that will write a property to the graph database. This will flag this node. And of course, you can configure your alert to return those cases directly in the alert, where you can investigate those cases, follow them, assign them to colleagues, etc. That was it for me. I give you the floor back, Shrada.
Thank you, Bernard, for the presentation. It's time for a wrap up. Okay, so why you should use Linkurious Enterprise Alerts? Because it helps you easily identify networks. With graph powered alerts, you can enrich your investigation arsenal to identify patterns of interest for your business, may it be fraud patterns, risky suppliers, cybersecurity threats, etc. You can easily identify those based on custom detection rules, thus helping you to make more informed decisions. Secondly, you can make most out of your investment. Alerts and case management in Linkurious Enterprise can help you surface hidden insights, pinpoint business patterns with ease so that you can gain time and efficiency in case management. Also, they provide you efficient detection and analysis by giving you the possibility to tailor detection rules according to your needs and be promptly alerted when critical events occur within your data, which empowers you to facilitate in depth analysis. This brings us to the end of our presentation today, and it's time for question and answers. Before I start, a small reminder that you can still put in your questions in the Q&A section. Okay, so let's start with the questions I have in the Q&A section. You can still put in more. The first one for you, Bernard, here is regarding some tips and tricks you were sharing regarding email notifications, and that is, how often is digest email notification sent?
Okay, so we have what we call a cron expression, which is an expression that we can write in our configuration. So we have two of them in Linkurious Enterprise. One will be used for the digest emails. So it will tell how often we will send a digest of the alerts. And we have another cron expression that will be used to say how often we notify the people that had cases assigned to them. So we don't send notification every time. So let's say someone wants to get the notification once per day for all the cases that were assigned to him. He can configure this cron expression to send all the case assignment notifications once per day. But for other use cases, you may need to send it right after the case is assigned, so you can configure it, for instance, to run every 5 minutes and send all the new assigned cases to that person. So it's totally configurable.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one, which is related to the columns in the case list. How do the columns in the case list work if the filters is text or numerical?
Okay, so as you saw in the presentation, we have two type of filters. One is numerical and another is text. And in order for Linkurious Enterprise to decide which filter to put there, when configuring your column, you need to choose if this column is a textual column or it's a numerical column, and this will choose the type of filters you can use.
Thank you. Then there's another one, which is about some best practices. Are there best practices around creating a node representing communities? What should we do? What should we avoid?
Yeah, so for instance, when using graph data science and Neo4j, uh, you can decide what to do with the community ID that was generated. You either put it as a property, but you can also create a node with that community. Uh, so the community will be represented as a node. Then you can add relations from all the community members to that node. And in this way, you can use this node as a target in Linkurious Enterprise alerts because, as said before, in Linkurious Enterprise alerts, we only take entities as targets. So it can be either nodes, it can also be relations, or a mix of nodes and relations. So we can't use a node property as a target. So that's why you will need to create a node for your community. Uh, I I don't think there's more to say on best practices about that. Um, but yeah, having an entity instead of a node property will help you create better alerts that are relating to the same target, and thus um, the case will consolidate all the members of the community in the same case where you can have a more clear view of your case.
Thanks, Bernard. Let's move on to the next one, which is related to some executions. So, I think there are two related to that. So, the first one is how many alerts can run in parallel?
Yeah, so Linkurious Enterprise will run every alert one by one. This means that all the alerts are queued. You need to make sure that your alert is not taking too long to run. Let's say you want to run your alert every hour. If all your alerts that are queued are longer than an hour, your alert will not run every hour because you need to leave the time for Linkurious Enterprise and the graph database to run all the queries, return the results, and process them. Um, but yeah, so all the queries will be queued and will run one after the other. And of course, in the user interface, you will have the last run date to make sure that your alert is running.
Thank you. Moving further, here is the question. Can I overload the system by defining non selective models? That is, anything triggers an alert?
I'm not sure I really understood the question. If uh, if the person who asked that can clarify it.
Okay. Maybe if you can elaborate on that question, I think it would be easier for us to answer on that one. Until that time, there's one more which I can take. Where should I store the CSV file when creating a watch list?
Yeah, the CSV sub file I showed you, I stored on Google Docs in my case because I wanted to use that already available functionality of filling a form online, but for sure, many of the companies using Linkurious Enterprise are investigating more sensitive data and would like to store this watch list offline on their servers. So you just need to make sure that the graph database have access to the CSV file, and of course that your form that you configured can write to the CSV file, and this way you can of course access the CSV file, create an alert on it, and um, create cases you can investigate. So
Okay.
about the question on overloading the system by defining non-selective models,
Mm-hmm.
um, I see that in the explanation it was too many patterns that fit the alert. So this is the idea of multimodal alerts. You can define multiple models. You don't have to match all of the models to get a new case. You can match one model, you can match three models, and by the way, this is shown on the graphical user interface how many models are matching for this specific case. But uh, starting one matching model, you can already have a case to investigate. And of course, when you have more patterns matching, like the cat example I gave, we had three models matching. You will get more context. It will be easier for an investigator to understand if, for instance, a person is committing fraud or something.
Thank you. I think there's one more related to the execution, which is, can you force an alert to run on demand as it can be useful while testing?
Yeah, exactly. What I recommend while testing is first to make sure that the graph query is working by either launching it as a query on your graph database or by using our query manager. So first make sure that the query is running. Then if you can make sure that you have the, a case that you already know will return results, also to make sure that you are testing the right alert and it's returning the right data. And finally, configure your alert. Now you can run it a first time, check the results. If the data is missing, you can modify the data in your graph database and then force run it again if you don't want to wait 5 minutes, 1 hour, or the frequency you defined for your alert. And once you're confident that your alert is working, you can edit it to share it with your colleagues.
Thank you, Bernard. That brings us to the end of Q&A. I want to take this opportunity to thank you everyone for your time today and interesting questions you asked us. I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us. After the webinar, we'll be sending you the recording of today's webinar so you can watch it later and share it with your colleagues who could not be here today. Thank you again for joining us today and have a great rest of the day.